is Jackie Graybill. This woman ruined Jackie. She introduced her to entrepreneurship and ruined her from ever wanting a job job. After working with Susan, the longest Jackie would work for a quote boss was 8 months. With Jackie's speech titled Susan's on 11th, Jackie Graybill.
This speech starts where every good speech should start, in the dentist's office. I was sitting there as a 16-year-old doing my music theory, minding my own business, waiting for what they call a jab instead of a shot in the UK. Out came the nurse. "We're ready for you," she said. But then she came up and she said, "Jackie, what are you working on?" I knew her because she was the sister of our neighbor. Becky said, "Jackie, what are you working on?" And I said, "Oh, music theory." She said, "Really? Have you ever thought of teaching piano lessons?" "No, I've never thought of that, but that sounds like it could be fun." "Well, the reason I ask you, Jackie, is at the daycare where my kids, Ashley and Nick, attend, they have piano lessons after school every day, but their teacher has left. Would you be interested in meeting with the owner and seeing if it might be a good fit for you?" "Sure," I said. I was very excited. I was in a job that I detested. I was working very hard at a stamp manufacturing company. Rubber stamps, not my jam. So I seized the opportunity. Becky said, "Oh, by the way, you'll need to have a resume." What kind of resume can you have as a 16-year-old? But I got on my version of Microsoft Word, whatever it was back then, and I typed up my little resume. I included that I had a diploma, a high school diploma in piano, which I did. I put that I had come in second place in the West Seattle piano competition. And then I included a little bit about myself. It was the day, and I was ready, I thought, but I was very nervous. I walked in the door and she said, "Hi, I'm Susan." Susan had a very slight frame and she was about 5'2". But don't let that fool you. Susan was a firecracker. She had dirty blonde hair, and her mother-in-law was Irma Rombauer, who wrote The Joy of Cooking. Susan was a force to be reckoned with, and I was nervous as she went through my credentials. Then she took me upstairs to the place where the piano was, and the children would sit down to do their piano lessons. She had me play. She wanted to make sure I could really play, and I wasn't just saying that. And then she said, "Okay, we'll start on Monday." Thus began a wonderful mentoring relationship. Susan would even start taking piano lessons from me, which was a great joy. She helped me understand how to interact with clients because as a 16-year-old, this was very intimidating. How do I do contracts? How do I send out invoices? How do I put together a piano recital and make sure that everyone has all the information that they need? And most importantly, what do you do when a piano parent is unhappy? She taught me how to interact with clients, how to put myself forward as a professional. And without her, I would not have kept teaching. Now, her setup was very perfect for me learning how to teach. And what I've since realized is you can go to college and get great degrees in music theory and in pedagogy, but if in the real world you don't know how to interact with a child or adult student and get them to an aha moment with a particular concept, you're going to be out of luck. This was the perfect environment for me to learn how to teach because, as Susan told me, the parents just wanted their children to have some exposure to music. They didn't have a lot of expectations. Later, I would be annoyed by these types of parents because their kids were not practicing. Sometimes it felt like I was babysitting, but that's okay. Because in my learning environment, this was great. I didn't have a parent sitting there scrutinizing my methods. I was able to pick and choose. Does this method book work better? Does that work better? I was able to figure out how much do I want to include classical? How much do I want to include composition and ear training? I was able to learn all of this sitting upstairs in Susan's living room. Without Susan, I would not have gone on to teach piano for 21 years. 1,400 students later, I am more than grateful for all that Susan taught me. She ruined me for a job, and entrepreneurship became intoxicating. The only reason I've had a job since then is as a stopgap after a move. And I have Susan to thank for all of this because she believed in me. She saw something in a 16-year-old, and not everyone would. I have so much respect and admiration for Susan, and I'm so glad that I had the dentist appointment that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Timer, can we have 1 minute, please?
That's a minute.
Thank you, Kristina. Remember to send your comments into the chat box for the speakers, please. Our next speaker is Lloyd Smith. There are many different communication styles, and the Pathways Project, Understanding Your Communication Style, deals with 4 of the most important of them. As the project points out, each communication style has value, and there is no best overall style. That's veridical, but the effectiveness of an act of communication depends on 2 things: the communication style the speaker employs and the receptivity of the audience for that style. This evening, Lloyd Smith will explain that concept as he completes level 2 in his effective coaching path with the Understanding Your Communication Style project. Lloyd Smith and Sir, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir, Lloyd Smith.
It was the late 70s to early 80s, and at Eastmont High School, we had a run of retired military officers who were student teachers. The reason that happened was that somebody in the administration at Central Washington University hit on a brilliant marketing idea. They created a specialized program for retired military officers, 1 school year, 2 quarters taking education classes in the on campus and 1/4 student teaching. And then the retired officer would have his brand new teaching certificate. It was a great idea, but it didn't work. About 50% of those people never finished their student teaching. Now, why would that be? And I think the best way I can explain that to you is by telling you the story of the general. This guy was assigned to me as a student teacher. When I met him, very imposing looking guy, a retired full colonel in the Army. That's one step below general. So this guy was way up on the pyramid. He had been in combat in Vietnam and Korea. He wasn't afraid of anything. Very imposing character. And I thought, okay, he's probably going to make it. There aren't any kids who are going to chew up a guy like this. In fact, quite the contrary. He was smart, assertive, and he was the perfect example of the speaking style that they describe in the project. They label it direct. This style is decisive, competitive, independent, and confident. Because the person with a direct communication style is focused, results-oriented, ambitious, goal-oriented, and driven, others may perceive him as strong-willed or demanding. He can be seen as impatient when bored. He likes to feel in control and may become frustrated if dependent on others. He measures progress by achievements and successes and is motivated by challenges. At work, he displays more concern for results than relationships and does not easily share feelings. His pace is fast and decisive, and he likes a busy, efficient, structured, and formal environment. That was the colonel to a T. Within a couple of days, the kids had nicknamed him General Patton. This was back when that movie with George C. Scott was very recent. And really, I thought it was a pretty good nickname for this guy because he had that manner about him, that kind of puffed up manner when he stood up in front of his troop of 16-year-olds. Now, that's the problem. He didn't understand that there was a tiny difference between dealing with a bunch of guys in the Army who had to obey him and had to listen to him and a bunch of 16-year-olds who really didn't give a rip. And as a result, every day, General Patton got a little bit less happy. He would get red in the face and his voice would raise and the kids would chuckle. After school, every day, he and I would talk and I would explain, you're not talking to guys in the Army. You're talking to a 16-year-old. You got to think about your audience and so on. The next day, he would get mad and on and on and on and on. Finally, one day, he was really angry with the 6th period class. So the weather was warm. It was hot in the building. The kids were kind of antsy. There was a certain amount of noise and shuffling and mumbling and whatnot going on. And the general didn't like that. And so his voice got louder and louder, and the kids got a little bit louder to overcome what to them was just an annoyance, namely this guy. If you remember back in your school days, student teachers are frequently treated pretty badly because everybody knows they go away sooner or later. And the general wasn't really aware of that fact. Finally, he got really angry at the end of this class at a kid who was sitting in the back of the room. Now, I was in the back of the room observing him, thinking, oh boy, this is getting close to being out of control. And this kid 2 rows over from me in the back of the room was screwing around some way, I don't even remember what. And the general suddenly shouted, "Sit up, soldier." And the kids just roared with laughter. And that kid who was doing that jumped to his feet, saluted and said, "Sir, yes, sir," and then sat back down. The room went nuts. And I thought the general was going to blow a gasket. And I leaned over and I thought, what am I going to do? I mean, I can't let this get out of control like that. I leaned over and I pointed at the kid and said, "You out." And he got up and headed for the door, and I got up to follow him. And out in the hall, I said, what the hell were you doing? You can't do stuff like this. Go sit in the office until the end of school and then go home, And when I went back in, the kids were kind of quiet. They all leave, and the general says, I don't know what I'm going to do. This was like about his 3rd or 4th day of the quarter. So it wasn't getting better, it was getting worse. Finally, a couple days later, just before school, the student teaching supervisor from Central, Dr. Ernie Chanui, came in the door and said, well, I've got some bad news. Colonel Jones has quit the program. And I told him, well, I'm not really surprised. And Ernie said, I'm not either. And the reason this happened to this poor guy was that he had failed to adjust his communication style. And in the project, it is perfectly explained this way. It is important to recognize how effective communication can impact your interaction with others. Communication styles are often situational. Be sure to monitor your application of communication styles. Decide if your current style is effective based on feedback and outcomes. If necessary, adjust your behavior and adopt new styles to fit a situation, team, or person. And that's the lesson in this. This guy had refused to recognize his communication style, and he refused to adapt it to the situation he was in. As a result, he failed. He didn't get across what he had to get across, and he quit while he was behind. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lloyd. Timer, will you please give us a minute?
I will. That's 1 minute.
Please wrap up your comments. Thank you, Ms. Timer. This is the part of our meeting where we have table topics. Our table topics master tonight is Ms. Mary Syrie. Take it away, Mary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster Eric Stepper. Table topics is a long-standing Toastmasters tradition, and it's intended to help our members develop their ability to organize your thoughts quickly and respond to an impromptu question. I will ask some clever questions based on today's theme, which is saving daylight. The person I call on has 1 to 2 minutes to respond. Your response can be veridical or it can be entirely made up. The choice is yours. Oh, and remember to use the word of the day, veridical, meaning truthful. Now, I like daylight savings time in the spring, and I like going back to standard time in the fall. Easy to, I forget the word, anyway, I'm happy either way, but I know that a lot of people have very strong opinions about daylight savings time, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. No, as a matter of fact, I'm not gonna ask that obvious question, are you in favor or are you against it? So let's get started. We just have one person without a role tonight, and that's Barbara. So here it comes, Barbara. We spend our lives saving time. We find the fastest route to work. We buy prepared food for dinner to save time. And you saved 1 hour on Sunday night or Sunday morning. And that hour is now sitting in your time bank. You get to spend it in October when we go back to standard time. What are you gonna do with the extra hour you saved and you get to spend in October?
Thank you very much. What am I going to do with the hour that I saved? That's a great way to look at it because I did not look at it as saving an hour. I looked at it as losing an hour, but perhaps I need to be more positive. So for what would I do, or what am I going to do with this saved hour? I'm going to spend more time with loved ones, and I'm going to spend more time in the morning reflecting on my day and preparing myself for the day. I have 3 dogs who do not understand daylight savings time. They demand to be fed at the same time every day, no matter the hour. So when I say that I lost an hour, it's because I was woken up at 4:30 to feed my dogs. Additionally, my animals also take medication that has to be timed perfectly. So what will I do with my hour? Maybe I'll sleep. Thank you.
Very good. Kristina, you're up next, giving you a second to turn your responsibilities over to Eric. Kristina, guess what today is? I learned this on Wake Up Wenatchee this morning. Today is National Napping Day. I don't nap myself. My mother quit putting me down for a nap when I was 2 years old because I didn't sleep. I just get up and get into mischief. But were you able to celebrate National Napping Day today? Did you enjoy an afternoon nap?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. No, I did not take a nap today. However, on Friday, I got my second COVID vaccination. And on Saturday, I took several naps. I was one of the fortunate few to experience flu-like side effects from the second shot, which included headache and body aches, fever, fatigue, the whole 9 yards. So I took a 2-hour nap in the afternoon, then a hot shower, and then another nap, which was simply delightful. I don't like squandering naps on days when I feel crummy. That's a waste of a good nap to me. I would prefer to take a nap when it happens. For instance, on a Saturday or Sunday, right after lunch, put on the Golf Channel. That'll put anybody to sleep in a heartbeat. That's my idea of a good nap. Drift off to the murmur of golf people talking in low tones and wake up whenever the mood strikes. Naps are a treasure. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Delightful. Steve Schwind, you're up next. And you are awe counter, so somebody count his awes. I'm sure that'll be easy. Steve, we lost an hour on Sunday, and this was through no choice of our own. If you could choose an hour in your life to lose, which hour would it be? What were you doing that you would simply like to have vanish? In other words, something that you don't mind sharing with us. Which hour would you like to get rid of out of your life?
Well, I get rid of an hour while I was napping, but they're just too valuable.
Yeah.
If I was going to lose an hour, it would be the middle of the night when I was sleeping, because I wouldn't even know the difference. It would be gone. I was sleeping anyway. What the heck? This whole notion of losing an hour and gaining an hour is semantic, if you will. There's 24 hours in the day. All they do is they push the clock this way and that way, and we've conceptualized it to be losing or gaining an hour. There are no more hours in the day in reality. You all know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But I just think about how inconvenient it is. They keep playing with the time, and I can't really plug in exactly what's happening and how and why. I just kind of let it go until I have made the shift and life goes on. As a mountain biker, we have these, what I call flamethrowers. They're headlamps that we wear on our bikes and our helmet so that we can extend the mountain bike season or get it going a little sooner, because it's like a train going down the tracks, the headlamp on a train, if you've ever seen it. They're huge, they're bright, and our headlamps are like that. That opens up the window to that, quote, lost time to darkness. That's what I got to say about that.
Well, okay. I can think of a few hours in my life I'd like to get rid of, but it's all fantasy, not veridical, fantasy. Don't forget the word of the day. Oh, and let's see. I think I'm going to ask Eric next. In our digital world, many of our smart clock and computers change time automatically. And all we have to do on daylight and standard time changes is change a few of our old-fashioned dumb clocks to be the right time. Even so, I have to admit, sometimes, some years it takes me so long to adjust my car clock that I just wait until the next time change. Do you have a story about changing clock time at your house? A story about changing the clock time.
Thank you, Ms. Table Topics Master. I'm with Steve. This, changing the time is ridiculous, back and forth. And I mean, you just get used to it. So I have OCD. So I decided I was going to help my wife because she changes all the clocks and all the things. So we probably have 11 clocks in this house. I mean, it's crazy. So I went through and I changed all the clocks and very dutifully and figured them all out. It probably took me about 30 minutes because they're all different. And they all have different ways of doing it and all that kind of stuff. But I forgot about the ones that change automatically. So I changed them all, and some of them, I mean, we were just as bad off as we were when I started. So I don't really even care about daylight savings time because my wife changes all the clocks. And it's just like laundry. I mean, when we were very first married, I screwed up the laundry the first week into it, and now I don't have to do laundry anymore. And now I don't have to change clocks anymore. I'm going to tell you another secret. I mean, she's sitting right here, but when I get my second shot, even if I don't have the flu, I'm going to take my naps.
Well, good for you. Naps are good. I haven't taken one for 66 years. Am I that old? So I envy all you nap takers. Selina, maybe we need to rethink this whole time and calendar thing. So instead of changing clocks, maybe we could just change calendars. Like we could work 7 hours in the winter months and 9 hours in the summer months, or start school at 9 a.m. in the dark months and earlier in the sunny months. I've always thought that New Year's should be in March, the first day of spring. That way we would get a 3-day weekend in the month of March. And September, October, November, December would all make sense. So I'm going to say that there's a new cabinet position, and it's the Secretary of Homeland Time, Schedule, and Calendars. What changes would you like to see enacted?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. If I were appointed a new cabinet position where I was able to determine time for the United States, I would put us all on the same calendar. 8 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast would be 8 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. We would all be in the same time zone. I find myself struggling because at Link Transit, we have a lot of meetings that are set with Zoom on the East Coast calendar and time. And that means I can start my workday at 5 o'clock in the morning. Wouldn't it be more fair if we all were subjected to the same time, regardless of when the sun was coming up in the morning? I think it would work a lot better for all of us. And this ridiculous time change, I was hoping to get away from the flamethrower, but I'm back with the flamethrower in the morning when I'm motivated enough to lose that extra hour of sleep. I would be happy if we could all be on the same time zone all of the time and not have to worry about changing. I love that extra hour of sleep at the end, but I would give up that little hour if I could just not change. We can stay the way we are. I would be happy with that, but let's just put us all on the same page. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
You may get your wish. I read today that there's bipartisan support, folks. Bipartisan support in Washington, D.C. for going on daylight savings time year round. I think that'd be really refreshing to have both sides of the aisle agree on something. How wonderful. That wraps up table topics for the day. I'm going to turn it back to our Toastmaster, Mr. Eric Stepa.
Very nice. Mary, you always do an excellent job. This is no different. Yeah, to agree on the time change is first bipartisan. Yeah, small steps. I am going to turn it over now to the general evaluator. Hey, all right, I'm going to call on my team. We have a couple of speeches and we have speech evaluators, and our first speech evaluator is Kathleen McNalty. Carry it away.
This is where we find out if I do have the ketchup on my blouse. Okay. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My role today is to evaluate Jackie's speech, providing my veridical, and my veridical only, my truth, what I think about her speech. I used the format that she provided, and I'm going to go through some of the points that were provided in that document. The first thing I would say, Jackie, is congratulations. Your speeches have really, the word I could think of was matured. They're interesting, they're deeper than they were in the past. I've always enjoyed them, but I would say congratulations on that. I really liked your opening. It was very engaging. I immediately went to the dentist office with you. In the old days when they had the big metal shots, ooh, it took me there, but then suddenly you shifted me over to music theory. I loved that, taking me to kind of a dark place and then shifting over to this fun and lighter place. I really enjoyed that. The next thing I wanted to comment on is your vocal variety. Your timing is really good. I can tell that you've been practicing it a lot. You referred to an aha moment and the way that you paused during that. You had a sentence that was because, as Susan told me, and then you went on and you deliberately in many of your sentences took these pauses. I thought that was terrific. You also took other people's voice without doing their voice. It was very compelling. I could still feel like that person was represented, even though it wasn't literally a different voice as you sometimes do. Your eye contact is terrific. On Zoom, sometimes I tend to go down or I'm off to the side. To look at people, you're not really looking at them in the eye. You did a great job of keeping the eye contact. In terms of gestures, I loved your gestures. You had the piano gesture and lots of movement with your hands. The problem with Zoom is that some of your gestures are down here. And if you back up far enough for us to see your gestures, then we can't see your beautiful face. It's one of those Zoom challenges that we have. One thing you might want to work on is actually fewer gestures. And that might help that, because I know you're moving into some competition, which I think is still going to be on Zoom. You kept the audience interest. They were smiling, nodding, looking at you. They were really enjoying it. The one thing that I would suggest would be connecting your subject more to mentoring. I was about 2 minutes in when I started wondering, I wonder where this is going. Then I was, oh, this is about mentoring. A small point. Excellent job. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you, Kathleen. Speech number 2 was Lloyd Smith, and to evaluate Lloyd's speech is Pat Whitfield.
Lloyd's speech really reached me to be totally veridical, because I've been a teacher educator for years. And when he was talking about a student teacher in a classroom and what can go right and what can go wrong, I could relate it to hundreds of student teachers. And he, as the mentor teacher, describing his role in the situation and his concern. I also like the connection of the title, Sir, Yes, Sir, with the actual incident a little bit later on in the story. He talked about the speaker's style and the receptivity of the audience. If I were just an audience member and not evaluating his speech, he related perfectly to me and I could really connect with that. His story about the Colonel was really insightful. His direct speaking style and then relating it to what is entailed in a direct speaking style. Very, very clear description of that particular style, very insightful. He used a very colorful phrase in his presentation. He talked about the Colonel not understanding that 16-year-olds don't give a rip. I haven't heard that statement in a long time, but it made me smile because, yeah, 16-year-olds, they've just moved out of that junior high school level. And I always identify junior high kids as 2-year-olds on steroids. So 16-year-olds have got the little bit of sophistication that comes after the junior high years. The reason for the Colonel's failure was he didn't adjust his style. And Lloyd explained that very clearly. I thought that one of the strengths of his speech was his infusing the criteria of a direct speaking style into the story. I think he did a great job with that. A couple of things to work on. Your eye contact was down at the monitor. I suspect that your monitor might have been on your desk rather than at your eye level. And I applaud your standing because I know historically you've been more comfortable sitting. So I applaud your effort to stand, but try, if there's a way for you to raise your screen so that you can look at us, or train yourself to look forward rather than down, that would be good. And your hand gestures are pretty consistent. They're usually at your waist and they're usually open palm. So you might want to think a little bit more about your hand gestures. Overall, I thought that it was well constructed. It fit with the criteria for the topic. It was a good story. And as I said earlier, the criteria was well integrated. Good job.
Thank you, Pat. Now the rest of my team. First up is timers report. Kristina, I'll be doing timing.
Everyone did very well on time this evening. Our two speeches, Jackie's 6 minutes, 35 seconds. Lloyd one-upped her with 6 minutes, 36 seconds. On table topics, Barbara, 1 minute, 24. Steve, 1 minute, 56. Selina, 1 minute, 53. Eric, 1 minute, 20. Mine was 1 minute, 45. For evaluations, Kathleen snuck in under the wire with 3 minutes, 27 seconds. And Pat, 3 minutes, 7 seconds. Well done, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Timer. Next up is grammarian. Selina, will you give us a grammarian's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I would be happy to, and we'll start with the word of the day, veridical. I might have missed if Lloyd used it because my Zoom glitched out on me for a moment and I had to log back in the middle of his speech. So Lloyd, I apologize. I did not hear you use the word veridical. Eric, you used it once. Mary, 3 times. You are the champion of word of the day today. Kathleen used it twice and Pat used it once. And in terms of grammar usage, there were some word phrases that I thought I would call out because I thought they were really fun, but I didn't hear anything that I thought rung not veridical. It all sounded great to me. I liked when Jackie said that rubber stamps are not her jam. That was fun. I liked her phrase, what do you do when a piano parent is unhappy? I've been one of those piano parents. I don't remember ever being unhappy with the teacher, but sometimes with the students that I was supervising at home occasionally. But what do you do when a piano parent is unhappy? I don't know. I'd love to know what you did. Entrepreneurship became intoxicating. I like that. And then when she described her mentor as she saw something in a 16-year-old and not everyone would. And in Lloyd's speech, he ended with, and I missed a chunk of it in the middle. So again, I apologize, Lloyd, but his protagonist quit while he was behind. Thought that was a good phrase. I liked Steve Schwind's referral of his headlamp as a flamethrower. I like to think mine is too. I have to keep mine down to about a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10 because it's pretty dang bright. I've had people tell me on the canal to turn it down a little because they were blinded. And that's it for me. Back to you.
Thank you, Selina. Next up is Ah Canter. Steve, how we doing ahs and ums and ers tonight?
Thank you. I was a little distracted. You probably noticed my ventriloquist act I had going here. I think for the most part, I did all right. Eric, I don't think I got it all, but you had a couple of ands. You had a if, and all that stuff, all that kind of stuff. It was a kind of a filler sentence, if you will. I got the if and a you know. That's the extent of that. Lloyd, you got going with your ands a bit there. Had 5. You had an a well, and so on. which maybe that's okay. You had one of those. And you started your sentence with now, which you like to do. Maybe that's acceptable too. It seems awkward to me personally. So maybe it's just a pet peeve. And one you know. Jackie, you did very well right at the end. You threw a now in at the beginning of your sentence. Again, maybe that's just my pet peeve. Pat, I didn't catch anything today. Kathleen, you did very well. You had an I in your presentation, evaluation. Selina, an and a couple of ums. I thought you did a great job. You've apparently become cognizant of those words, and you seem to be doing a good job of erasing them from your usage. Me, I was clean. Barbara, I got a couple of so's. Pat, a well and a so, and I think you had a little bit of a locomotive chug start on one sentence at one point. Kristina, clean as a whistle, as always, almost always. Mary, you did very well towards the end. You managed to throw a and a couple of so's in there. Did anybody catch any sin on me? I didn't. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Steve. What a fun meeting. I enjoyed my team. We had a lot of positivity in the whole meeting and in my team. And we also pointed out some things that could improve. Kathleen went and got the flag right on, and Mary stepped up and hosted. So it was just a lot of fun. I will now turn, oops, Steve.
I got one thing I'm surprised that grammarian didn't catch. Automagically. I like that. I thought that was cute.
I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly, but I agree. That was amazing.
The technical term.
All right, let's send our votes in for the speaker of the evening. Who wants to?
Can we send it to Mary since she's the host?
Sure, send it to Mary, please.
Thank you, Eric. I was going to mention that word too, Steve. Oh, I snuck an in there.
While we're waiting, I'd like to mention how much fun Lloyd and I and the electric toasters are having with speech crafters. I think we have one, maybe 2 sessions left, and it's been a really good time. Those 3 students we have given about 5 speeches in the past 6 weeks, so good for them. They're rolling in. We have a winner. We have a winner. We have a winner every week. Why should that be startling? Jackie, excuse me. Congratulations, Jackie. You are the speaker of the day. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for a very fun meeting. Yeah, we're at 6:30 on the dot. Put your expectations out there and we will deliver. Fantastic. Thank you all so much. If anybody doesn't have anything else, okay.
Okay, stop.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
You guys.
Bye.